Good afternoon now. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for this press conference, which is going to be addressed by our chairman, founder, and author of ModiNomics, Mr. Samir Kochhar. So without much ado, let me have the pleasure of inviting him and start the proceedings. Mr. Kochhar.
Well, good afternoon and namaskar. For those of you who know about SKOCH Group would know that for 20 years we have been doing field research on areas related only to financial inclusion and inclusive growth of India, and I have published close to 20 books on the subject. So while I am neither an economist nor a statistician, but I understand one subject, and that subject is financial inclusion, which I understand rather well. Now, I have been watching with a lot of amusement all these discussion and debate that has been going on jobs or the lack of them in India. Specifically, economists fighting with economists, one survey fighting with the other survey as to what is going on. Now, if you are actually, an economist and you want to figure out whether it is raining, you would possibly run a huge mathematical model. You will run 1 million variables on a supercomputer and then figure out whether it is raining or not. If you were Samir Kochhar, what you would do is you simply open the window and look out and figure out whether it was raining or not. So that's the big difference between our approaches, two approaches. Our approach comes from grassroots level upwards. Our teams travel throughout the year to all the states, looking at various government interventions and documenting them and getting the real feel of data and what's happening on the ground. You also know that we have these SKOCH Awards for which most governments compete, and they come and present to us their achievements during the year fairly comprehensively. So the kind of data that we have and the kind of feel that we have possibly is unparalleled, and I would say that that is something, since the economists and the most survey kind of people don't have that feel, so they are not able to appreciate very much in terms of what is really going on at the grassroots. So what I am going to share with you is what is happening today. You would recall that I had done a book called ModiNomics, which was released in February 2014, which was the first authentic record of what happened in the Gujarat model. And ever since we have been following how PM Modi has performed versus CM Modi, and we have come out with periodic report cards on various aspects of what has changed and what has been better. So this report that we are releasing today is related to the financial inclusion series reports that we have done, and this is the 5th report in the series. So if you look at the earlier reports, the first report talked about job generative impact of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana in 2017. Then the second report, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana delivers universal financial inclusion 2018. Credit gap falls 12.1%. January 23. Modi government makes great strides in financial deepening, July 23. And now today, finally, as an end result of all of this, so what happened? Employment generative impact of ModiNomics, the paradigm shifts, May 2024, which we are releasing today. Next slide. So the headline essentially is that 51.4 crore person years of employment has been generated in the last 10 years, which averages about 5 crore employment per year. Out of these, if you look at Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana itself, it has added 2.52 crore steady and sustainable jobs every year as an average, net of employment mortality, and we've assumed a very high employment mortality, which is at 20%. And if you look at the NPA rate of Mudra Yojana, it would be a fraction of that. But we are assuming that 20% died. Then the net is 2.52 crores. Out of the 5.14 crore jobs, there is this phenomenon of fractional employment that happens through Narega and Gram Sadak Yojana and all these governance-oriented schemes. 1.97 crore person years of fractional employment as an average per year since 2014 has been created. So there are almost like 25 crores out of credit-led employment and almost 20 crores out of government initiative-led employment, which is fractional. This totals to, I've already given you the math, almost 45.2 crores after mortality. This has happened because of, these are the macroeconomic factors. One is we have made great strides in financial deepening. In 2013-14, India's financial deepening ratio was 19.71. As of 22, it had gone up to 31.85. Similarly, if you look at the credit penetration, where we have used the Rangarajan methodology, the credit gap has fallen by 12.1% because of speeding. So this is called credit outreach gap. People who were having no access to credit, how many more people have access to credit? So these two preconditions are very important to create credit-led employment. Next one. So, employment generative impact of ModiNomics, the paradigm shifts. Jobless growth has been a perennial problem since independence. This was primarily due to a policy focus on formal jobs rather than creating employment and then moving it up the formality value chain. Creating fractional employment had no focus at all. Using credit and financial inclusion as a tool for employment generation was not feasible at that time. Over-reliance on statistical surveys and governance policies and economic policies working in independent silos. So if you look at the principle of ModiNomics, which I had said in 2013, was inclusive economics, inclusive governance. So if you are able to bring these two factors together, then the development takes place, and which is what we are finding in this report. And our reports are based on project level findings, have a high degree of acceptance because of that, and these are increasingly referred to for a ground reality check. So what is it that this report addresses? First thing that it addresses is employment generative impact of structured credit from formal sources. So this is formally recorded data. How much credit has been given, how many new loan accounts have been opened, and so on. The second part is Indian reality of fractional employment and its treatment. Now we cannot pretend that fractional employment does not happen in India. You know, you have the same guy who's maybe a security man in the night, he's, you know, a doodwala in the morning, he's selling tea in the afternoon. So are we saying he's unemployed because this is not employment? Because none of the surveys takes care of the fractional employment part of it. So what we have focused is not generic fractional employment, but we are focused on fractional employment caused because of government spending, and we have given a breakup scheme by scheme. It breaks the myth of inability of small amounts of credit to generate employment. Normally, if you see the economic argument, they would say, what can a person do with 80,000 rupees? How many jobs can he create? You know, because we look at that through the prism of our own incomes and our own backgrounds. So the first thing is that the person who is getting that loan under, let's say, a Mudra Yojana is not a destitute. It's a commercially vetted loan. The person has a business or wants to start a new business for which he needs some capital help. Typically, these people would be doing very capital intensive, not doing capital intensive businesses at all. They are doing very labor intensive businesses, and we have got today 80 case studies to show what kind of businesses these are that are very viable and feasible in that small of amount of money. Most of the economists and surveys in India do not understand how microfinance works, how small credit works, and why they do not understand this is they have never bothered to leave their air-conditioned offices and their computer screens What Excel tells them is growth, is growth. What is happening in the village is not growth. So we have been able to capture that, and we are capturing that since the year 2000. We haven't started capturing it now. We would have thousands of case studies, out of which for this report we have, we recently did a study of Bandhan ecosystem across 4 states. Bandhan is one of the microfinance focused banks, and we have from 4 states we have captured how small amounts of credit is enabling business. Now, there were some limitations. The biggest success of Digital India is the cross-sectoral gig economy. Everyone is become, you go outside, you will be found by Swiggy, Zomato, Urban Clap, this, that and the other. Now, are these unemployed guys? They are not. But what is the way of counting all of this? We see this employment all around us, but since we can't count it, we ignore it. We have referred only to the government published data and dashboards. There may be a small amount of duplication if it is there in the government data. All multipliers used are backed on direct field research by SKOCH and qualitative interviews, and have been vetted by stakeholders from multiple domains that are a part of a working group that have looked at this report. Huge investments have gone into infrastructure under the Modi government. Infrastructure capex is known to be job generative. While this impact in India is significant, at this juncture it is not feasible for us to quantify it, because simply it is not my subject. So I have only limited my comments to the subject that I have dealt with for 20 years. So let's come to employment generative impact of credit linkage. We have taken into account all new loan accounts added in a year. Employment per account has been taken at 0.66, which is the same multiplier which we have used in our earlier reports. In fact, it's a little lower than that. The multiplier is on the conservative side, as our field research of loan accounts of Bandhan Bank and direct beneficiary interviews across 4 states have shown a multiplier of 1.4 jobs per loan. The field visits have also shown that micro loans are being used to generate employment that is steady and sustainable, and we can show you a lot of case study films on that. Out of the 80 documented case studies of borrowers that had taken multiple loans, so it's not that these guys are taking one loan. While we have taken only the new loan account, one person is taking first loan, paying that back, taking second loan, third loan, fourth loan. So in Bandhan's case, they have taken loans as many as 6 times or more. So they're growing the business and they're growing the employment. But as I said, that we have taken into account only the new loan data. It makes it an average of 85,000 rupees to generate one credit linked employment. This is down from rupees 90,000 in 2017, which was there in our last Mudra report. And all of this tends to be labor intensive employment. Now coming to job generative impact of the government schemes. Employment generative government interventions tend to create a large number of fractional and informal employment. This employment is crucial as a social security net for employment and income augmentation during times of distress. So when you are jobless, it gives you employment. Total person days created can be converted into person years. You add the fractions, it will add to that many person years of jobs or employment in the economy. Unfortunately, economists pretend that this does not exist. The criticism often used against these schemes is low wages that may be inadequate for sustenance, but people tend to forget that people who are getting wages under, let's say, NREGA are also getting conditional cash transfers, targeted cash transfers like food, free gas, free education, free health. So what they get as wages is discretionary spending kind of money. Everything else is also coming to them. So we have studied total of 12 central schemes. Data on mandates generally has been sourced from the government dashboards. 260% days have been treated as a 1 person year. 160% days have been taken for constructing one house under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. This is a formula that was arrived at by NIPFP. 9 man-days have been taken for construction of 1 toilet under SWACH Bharat scheme, that the independent household latrine that is being done. So next one. So here are the lot of discussion about where are the 2 crore jobs. So here are the promised 2 crore jobs per year. When I say only 2 crore and why am I focusing on 2 crore, is these are the jobs that cannot be called informal or disputed, or because all of them are credit linked jobs. Next. PMMY alone has added 3.16 crore employment average per year since 2014. Even if we assume an employment mortality rate of 20%, at least 2.52 crore steady and sustainable employment is added every year by Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So then the next question you will ask is, how can a credit of 85,000 create and sustain employment? Which is what the question normally economists ask. So we have been studying this impact for many years. The employment generative impact of small loans of credit is well documented globally, including in Bangladesh, but somehow that wisdom is lost on our economists. For this report alone, we have visited hundreds of small loan beneficiaries around 4 states and documented case studies. We have an ongoing study called 100 Voices, A Billion Dreams. 80 of these have been converted into video case studies, which will prove that these are used. Next slide. So this is a list of field visits from Bihar. Now it gives you the kind of idea, okay, what is the kind of job that is being created and why is it possible to do it in 85,000 rupees. The first person, Babita Devi, is running a beauty parlor and gift store. Second is a cloth merchant. Third is screen printing. Fourth is tailoring and shirtling unit. Ladies footwear manufacturer, sweet shop, scrap material dealer, fabrication unit, footwear showroom. Now Gursharan is the one who's personally gone and documented all of this. So Gurshan, would you like to pick any one story from, and all these are available online on our website. You can go and see. The beneficiary and beneficiary himself is saying how much loan he took, how many times he took, how many people he employs, so on and so forth.
Well, thank you so much. So you mentioned Babita Devi, the very first one. Now that itself happens to be a very inspiring story. She lost her husband during COVID, and being a housewife and 2 children, she had nowhere to go. So she turned to Bandhan Bank asking for help. So she was given a small loan of 10,000 rupees to start something from inside the house where she lived. Within 3 years, she has taken multiple loans. She picked up 10,000, she paid back, she got another tranche of next. She has picked up 3 loans, and today she has gone through even a training in beautician, and employed 2 people who full-time who are there with her, and supporting her family, her children, and supporting 2 more families who were also affected during COVID. So in fact, if you look at the base, the employment gets generated at that level with such a small amount of loan, as small as 10,000 rupees, going up to just 30,000 in 3 years. So similarly, there are a number of such stories which one can go on.
Now, go on to the next slide of Bihar. We can skip through that and then go to Uttar Pradesh.
So even in UP.
So one very interesting story in UP is, using a small amount of credit, Deepak Kanaji, Pushak maker of Anandnagar, Mathura, has created 222 employment. Now, what is it that he is doing?
Deepak's is also a very interesting story. So they are husband-wife duo, and they have been involved in poshak making for a very long time. The business was not growing, and whatever little they did, and that also is very seasonal, because when there is a festive season, whatever they are making is selling, and when there is a non-festive season, so the family really suffered. So he expanded the network, included more women, approached Bandhan Bank, and the bank allowed him, after doing all due diligence, to apply and pick up a small loan of 20,000 rupees. And with that loan, he invested into creating an inventory. While he created the inventory, there were only 3 people at home, he himself and a small girl who were doing the job, which was not enough. So he reached out to the other women in the community and involved 20 of them and started palming off the work. So the job work, in fact, which reached out to these women, which was directly 20, and they also reached out to 10, 12, 15, whosoever was there within their network to create more and more employment. So meaning to say, with one small seed that was sown to better his own enterprise, Deepak managed to create a network which is supporting at least 50, 60 families today.
Next one. So that we move on to, similarly, we can move to Odisha.
Odisha, again, while you move from place to place, the dynamics change. In Odisha, there was one gentleman who was very well employed, but due to certain differences with his employer, he had to quit. While he quit, there was nobody in the family who could be a bread earner. So he decided that within the house, he will carve out a small portion and start a small kirana shop. And he had nowhere to go because whatever was there before COVID, he ate up all his the savings, and the family was down on the street. He turned to Bandhan Bank. They gave him a small loan of less than 10,000 rupees to start and stack some stuff, biscuits and small groceries, and see if it works. The bank trusted in him, and he did not let the bank down. Today he is running a full-fledged shop with 3 people there helping him on a 24/7 basis.
Yeah. So moving on to West Bengal. So what we are also showing you that this job generative growth has been pretty secular. These are states with different government dispensations, different scenario, but the magic of PMMY, credit-led employment, is fairly universal.
So in fact, if you look at the first one itself, Shalini Shaw, she has been with Bandhan for nearly 15 years. And immediately after marriage, she ran into trouble with in-laws, wherein they threw both the husband and wife out. So they were shelterless, they had nothing in hand, and they had nowhere to go. And picking up a small place just to have a shelter on their head, she was told to join a group which was a group of women associated with Bandhan Bank. With their help, she got a small amount of 2,000-3,000 rupees, with which she said that I will start some enterprise, very enterprising. So today, after as many years, she is a wholesale supplier of groceries. She supplies, the vegetables. She picks up everything in the morning. Her day starts at 4 o'clock. Her 2 children, they are now being well educated in a reputed school in the city of Kolkata. So it's again an entire story of transformation, and the dignity has returned to the family.
Thanks a lot, Kushan. So there are many interesting stories. So there's, like in West Bengal, we found somebody who was making puchkas, golgappas. So if you just look at this entire list, you would find a lot of jobs, types of businesses that are possible using small amounts of money, and the job generative impact of all of that has gone into this report. Now coming to the next slide, which is, so should we pretend that incremental employment does not exist? So I don't know, I completely disagree with the fact that you should ignore the incremental employment. It also has an impact on, we keep hearing that labor force participation is going down because so many students are preparing for IAS or IIT or something like that. But the fact is, each one of them have some source of the income or the other. May not be full time, maybe taking classes for children for 2 hours or something, but no one is fully dependent on their parents to make their thing. So should we ignore that reality? Should we ignore the guy who worked for 30 days under Narega? Should we ignore the guy who worked for 160 days to build a Gram Sadak? Can we pretend that these employment did not happen? Of course we should not. We should add it all up, divide it by 260, and say this is the man years of employment that has been added into the economy. Next slide. So this is the 10-year, next one. 10-year scheme by scheme, how many jobs per year average and what is the total employment. So you find that almost 19.79 crore jobs have been added through fractional employment over the past 10 years with approximately 2 crore per annum. So 2 crore this and 2.5 crore steady and sustained employment, 4.5 crore employment per year is what this data shows, which is at the minimum. Next. So this is the total number, 5.14 crore person years of employment, including mortality, has been added every year since 2014. And come to the conclusion, which answers the big question that 5.14 crore person years have been generated every year since 2014. Government has paid for 1.98 crore person years of fractional employment as an average per year. This is auditable data. PMMY itself has added 2.52 crore steady and sustainable employment as an average. This total to 25.2 crore credit-led employment since 2014. And since these guys have taken credit and they're self-employed and they're employing others, believe me, they will not fail. They put in whatever they have to keep their business running, but we have still assumed that 20% of them died, which is not reflected in the NPA figures of the Mudra Yojana. So that's all I had to say. I'll take any questions that you may have. Yeah.
Just want to understand for the generative impact of government-led initiatives. For PLI schemes in Swanidhi, you calculated an average, at least for PLI, is 1.32 lakh per annum from 2020-2021. Which particular PLI schemes?
No, this is all PLI schemes together had generated about 5 lakhs, but since they came out at different periods, we have divided them. So it looks like a similar number.
Okay, but any particular sectors in these? Like
This is mostly, Shivam, what all PLI schemes have we taken?
You've taken 8 schemes out of 50.
You can tell which ones? Okay. So 8 PLI schemes.
तो नक्शल में आप ये कह रहे हैं कि जो इस समय चुनाव में बेरोजगारी का मुद्दा उठ रहा है वो फालतू की बात है ना?
मैं चुनाव के बारे में तो नहीं बोलूँ, पर ये जो इकोनॉमिस्ट लोग आपस में लड़ रहे हैं कि CMI का सर्वे ये बोल रहा है और PLFS ये बोल रहा है और ILO ये बोल रहा है, तो मुझे ये लगता है वो डिस्कशन थोड़ी बेमानी है, क्योंकि वो आप मॉडलिंग करते रहिए, बट बाहर जाके देखिए तो ऐसा तो नहीं है कि यू आर फाइंडिंग एवरी सेकंड पर्सन इज अनएम्प्लॉयड. आप हायरिंग करके दिखाइए, हमारी अभी भी वैकेंसीज लगी हुई है लिंक्डइन के ऊपर. आप जो हायर करना चाहते हैं नहीं मिलता है.
Hi, so this is Surbi from Business Today.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to understand that when you include Narega in your calculations, is it not supposed to be an alternative to people who are not able to get employment? I just want to clarify.
It is not alternative to people it is a social security umbrella for people in distress. So you had an employment and then you lost it for some period of time. So you would do Narega in that period so that you can live. So when you add it all together, then how many man years of people could live because of Narega is the number. What was the alternative? If you did not have Narega, like during COVID, people who were working in the cities, domestic help, drivers, everyone went back, right? Were they sitting idle in the village? No, they were doing Narega work. That is why there was a surge in Narega work. So while they lost their wages in urban India, they were making some wages in rural India. So that is the entire purpose. Social security is the purpose of Narega.
Okay. And my second question, sir, was just wanted to understand that this is all the data you've taken from schemes and PMMY, etc. You haven't used any data on PLFS or payroll data for PFMY.
Fortunately, I am neither an economist nor a statistician. I don't understand what data they use and why does it say what it says. I think data and statistical system in India has outlived its utility and in need of very great reform. So if every year for 50 years digitization happened, gig economy happened, informal economy happened, but statistics still ask, are you employed? तो वो सर्वे का जवाब आपको क्या मिलेगा?
Hello, sir. This way. Hello. This way.
Yes, sir.
Sir, your approach you have shown that the employment has grown, the development has grown, and we all agree to that. But how much that affects the GDP of the country, because Hindu growth rate is approximately 4.5. And when you say that so many, Montek Singh and other people have given push to the policy making, so how far the GDP has grown from that period to this period? So that you have not talked.
I'll answer this in a different way. I don't put too much of premium on GDP, because I think what India needs is job generative growth, it needs sustainable growth, it needs growth that is equitable and inclusive. It's spatially dispersed. All of those conditionalities are met by the study that I have presented. I don't care whether the GDP was 14% or it was 5%. How many jobs it created is the relevant number. For me, that's what we study. We don't study GDP.
But that gives a leap for us to understand that there is a growth of certain percentage. If you make this type of, this you have not given what is the private sector, what is the public sector, and what is the government sector. That has to be.
So for that you have all those economic surveys which are fighting with each other. I can only talk about things that I understand. अब वो जीडीपी कितना, हमने तो गांव में जाकर इंटरव्यू कर लिया, अब मैं उसको क्या जीडीपी में डालूं? और उन्होंने क्या इतना बड़ा जीडीपी निकाल दिया, वो गांव वाले का सुना ही नहीं. वो कहते हैं 50,000 में रोजगार ही नहीं होता. इतने सारे तो दिखा दिया आपको रोजगार होता है. तो एक कॉमन सेंस की जो चीज़ है, I only bring common sense to the table. I don't bring economics to the table. Sorry. For that you talk to the economists. Yeah.
So this is Nivedita from the Sunday Garden. So I wanted to understand, when did you start putting together this study and the outcome of the report? And secondly, sir, have you also factored in the disruptions of the COVID era?
Yes, because all that data is there. So if loans went down during COVID, that data is here. If incremental fractional employment went up during COVID, that data is also here. So that is very verifiable data. We have been doing this job since 2000, 24th year we are in. So periodically we have come out with such research reports during all the governments that have been in place since the year 2000 to 2024, we have come out with similar reports on all of that. And as I mentioned, I can only talk about the areas that I study. What is happening in the larger economy, neither I comprehend nor do I have any wish to.
Good afternoon. This is Sanjay Agarwal. I am an economist. So when you talk about person years, because when you're presenting such a report, which is supposed to today everybody's here and is going to be published somewhere. So you need to give it an economic, means we are talking about Modi economics. Why not Nirmala Sitharaman economics? And when we did economics, so we have Keynesian economics or Milton, whatever. So means today this is kind of saffronizing, as my friend said, that this is the coming report at the election time. And then another thing is it a Bandhan Bank report? And is it a Bandhan Bank?
No.
They put all the data for the Bandhan Bank, and you've not told us about the sources. What sources, when any report is there, so you put credit to your sources. So you've not mentioned credit to any sources. And lastly, I think you've missed out on the Amazon and you've not talked about that, how much they might be also creating a lot of employment there.
Exactly. I mean, you have asked me like 10 questions. I've even forgotten the first one. No, so let's start with one on one. So you say this is not an economic report. I never. No. Sorry. I never claimed this to be an economic report. I am not an economist. Okay. Now, what is the genesis of ModiNomics? The genesis of ModiNomics is that in September 2013, a very senior political leader made a statement that economic knowledge of Modi ji can fit behind a postage stamp. Okay. And since I happen to be the biographer of that leader, and I also knew Modi ji, so we had a conversation, and Modi ji said, what do you think is my knowledge of economics. I said, I think the knowledge of economics is about the same, the approach is different. You believe in inclusive economics, inclusive governance, but at that point in time, in the government, the governance was separate and the economic policy was separate, they were not coming together. And that was the genesis of ModiNomics, where we picked up case studies and examples. It also is based on case studies and examples from the state of Gujarat, where economics and governance came together and the face of that state changed. So this is not an economic report, it's a socio-economic report. That's the way to understand it. What was your second question? Saffron. So if this was a saffron report, then I would have come out with it before the elections, not when the third phase is over. We come out with our reports without any timing. We come out with a report when the report is ready. Okay. The third thing is that, is this a Bandhan Bank report? The answer is no, it is not a Bandhan Bank report. We can equally well show you case studies of tribal development, equal number. We can show you state by state governments. It is just that the most recent study that we have done is that of Bandhan Bank ecosystem, so we've listed. But you want to see 100 more case studies? I can show you 100. You want to see 1,000 more? I can show you 1,000. Our website is full of, because we've been documenting these since 2000, right? So it is not a Bandhan Bank study at all. The examples taken are from a report called Study of Bandhan Bank Ecosystem. You had another question.
That was I was talking about when you're talking about the
Sources. Every slide mentions the source. Which slide doesn't mention the source? Have you come through it?
we did
Yeah.
maybe I just
So, yeah. Come. Every slide at the bottom mentions source.
but we data.
Sorry. This is Bandhan data. You not these slides. Just go to the data slides, government data slides. Stop. This source is there. Financial deepening, the source is there. Now each one of these charts, the source is there. And this came out in January 23. This has not come out in January 24. And I have given in the first slide itself an entire timeline of reports starting 2017, where we have been studying job generative impact of Modi schemes. And before that, we were equally studying job generative impact of whatever was there. So it is pretty secular. And if I was giving you examples from Odisha and West Bengal and Bihar, how can it be saffron? I'm saying those governments are doing, God bless them, they're doing very well. Because of Mudra Yojana, they're doing very well. So there has been a very good scheme, has been implemented well.
And I wanted to ask one thing about the fractional employment, which is the first time I'm listening to this word. And although you've clarified, because in economics you talk about disguised employment or disguised unemployment. When you talk about a conductor who's an engineer and he's sitting in the job of a conductor, he's feeding his family. So we just wanted to understand, why didn't you not take the help of an economist and put in something, which would be easier for the world to follow?
Do you feel, do I look like I like economists?
You're one, more than one.
I am not an economist, sorry. I have a lot of economist friends. I do not pretend to be one. I don't claim to be one. My studies are socio-economic, and I think economists should now make way for social scientists, because they have held public policy hostage for far too long by giving absolutely, pardon my English, bullshit data.
सर, my question is, आप लोगों ने जो डेटा मेंशन किया है कि 5.14 करोड़ पर्सन पर ईयर एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट हुआ हर साल 2014 से, तो मेरा ये कहना था कि कहीं आप लोगों ने इसको जीडीपी से कोरिलेट किया कि कितना इसकी वजह से जीडीपी बढ़ा है, जो फिगर्स हैं वो जीडीपी बढ़ा, या फिर कहीं पे जो
देखिए जीडीपी बढ़ा या घटा,
इनकम टैक्स जीएसटी कहीं पे इसका कहीं पे कोई कोरिलेट करने की कोशिश की गई है क्या?
मैं उसका आंसर देता हूँ। इनमें से कोई भी बंदा जो मैंने आपको दिखाया, आपको लगता है जीएसटी देता है? इनकम टैक्स देता है? 80,000 के लोन में वो क्या जीएसटी देगा, और वो क्या इनकम टैक्स देगा, और वो क्या जीडीपी में जाएगा? जीडीपी का तो सरकार देती है, मैं तो देता नहीं। There is no independent organization that calculates GDP, right? The figures come from Government of India. I neither have the comprehension of how to calculate, nor do I have the competence to give it. You can correlate whatever GDP data is out there given by the government with the data that I am presenting, and you can see for yourself whether it's gone up or gone down. But GDP is not a subject that I study.
बस GST में कंट्रीब्यूट हुआ भी वो उसने इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स तो कहीं ना कहीं पे किया होगा इसके इनकम।
देखिए, कोई मिट्टी की पॉटरी बना रहा है और ब्यूटी पार्लर चला रहा है, उसने अब 4 लिपस्टिक खरीदी और 2 पाउडर के वो पाउच खरीदे, उसका GST किसने दिया, कहाँ गिना, मैं तो नहीं गिन सकता, भारत सरकार गिन सकती है, तो गिन ले। अगर वो GST की चेन में है तो दिया होगा जरूर, नहीं है तो बिना GST के भी माल बिकता है। इसीलिए इसको कैलकुलेट करना इतना मुश्किल है। क्यों?
कितना जीडीपी में अगर जीडीपी में इसको शामिल किया जाता तो कितना इसको कितना इसमें कितना बढ़ोतरी हो सकती थी?
मुझे इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग के जीडीपी को कितना फ़र्क पड़ा, मैं कहूँ क्वालिटी ऑफ जीडीपी ग्रोथ को बहुत फ़र्क पड़ा, क्योंकि जो इंडिया को जॉब जनरेटिव, स्पेशली डिस्पर्स्ड, इक्विटेबल, इंक्लूसिव और सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ चाहिए, वो 4 कंडीशंस जो हैं इससे मीट हो रही है। तो जीडीपी जो भी हो उसकी क्वालिटी इंप्रूव हुई है बिकॉज ऑफ दीज स्कीम्स। उससे पहले तो आप सब बोलते थे ना जॉबलेस ग्रोथ, जॉबलेस ग्रोथ, जॉबलेस ग्रोथ। कितने सालों से बोल रहे हैं हम लोग जॉबलेस ग्रोथ?
सर मेरे 2 सवाल हैं। एक है कि सर सैंपल साइज क्या होगा इस स्टडी का जो आपने ये डेटा निकाला। दूसरा सर, यदि हम रिलेटिव स्टडी करें कि 2014 से 24 में ये स्कीम से इतनी जॉब्स की अपॉर्चुनिटी जनरेट हुई, तो 2004 से 14 के अंदर इस तरीके की कोई स्कीम्स थी जिससे जॉब जनरेशन देखने को मिला है? इस तरीके की कोई रिलेटिव स्टडी यदि आप
देखिए, माइक्रो क्रेडिट इज़ वेरी ओल्ड। क्रेडिट लेड इंटरवेंशंस जो मैंने फाइनेंशियल डीपनिंग और क्रेडिट गैप रिडक्शन का डेटा दिखाया है, उससे काफ़ी स्पष्ट होता है कि उसमें 2014 के बाद कितना फ़र्क पड़ा है। और ये भी है कि एक तो स्कीम ही नहीं थी उससे पहले। प्रधानमंत्री मुद्रा योजना कब आई? 2016 में आई, उससे पहले तो थी ही नहीं। और दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि उसके उस वक्त हमारे पास एनेबलिंग टेक्नोलॉजी भी नहीं थी। ये जो जैम हुआ जनधन आधार मोबाइल, उसकी वजह से आप इतना क्रेडिट आउटरीच और फाइनेंशियल डीपनिंग कर पाए हैं। तो ये 2 कंडीशंस, चाहे वो टेक्नोलॉजी ग्रो करी, गुड गवर्नेंस से ग्रो करी, स्पीड से करी, जो भी करी, बट उस समय वो जो अवेलेबल था उसका तो रिपोर्ट हमने उस टाइम छाप दिया। मेरे को तो अब याद भी नहीं है कि क्या था। और जो 2014 के बाद हुआ वो अब आपके सामने है। उस टाइम की मेरे भी किताबें हैं। ये किताब जो है 2008 की छपी हुई है, इसके अंदर भी केस स्टडीज़ हैं ऐसी ही। सैम्पल साइज तो इसमें रिलाई ही नहीं करता बिकॉज दिस इज अ क्वालिटेटिव सर्वे। सैम्पल साइज अगर आप बोलेंगे स्टेटिस्टिकली कितना डाटा लिया तो मैं कहूँगा 100%, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट डैशबोर्ड में तो सभी का है डाटा। उन्होंने बोला कि हमने 100 लोगों को दिया तो हमने 100 मान लिया, सत वचन। उन्होंने बोला 100 लोगों को क्रेडिट दिया तो हमने वो भी मान लिया, आरबीआई का डाटा है, तो वो सैंपल तो हो गया 100%। उसके अंदर हमने वैलिडेट किया है जाके फील्ड विजिट्स करके, जो कि हम 20 साल से कर रहे हैं। उसमें कितनी नौकरियां मिलेंगी वो फैक्टर हमने सर्वे करके जनरेट किया। और जो मल्टीप्लायर हम 2017 में यूज़ कर रहे थे वही मल्टीप्लायर आज यूज़ कर रहे हैं।
सर, पूनम फ्रॉम ANI, सर कोविड के टाइम का डेटा आप बात कर रहे थे, कोविड का क्या है अगर आपको?
कोविड के ईयर्स देख लीजिए, हमने ईयर बाय ईयर ब्रेकअप दिया है इसमें, जस्ट शो गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स डेटा कोविड ईयर्स। और गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स का दिखा देना।
government scheme, if you see the Manrega, there is a jump in Manrega. From 2019 it is 10 crore, then it is 14%, then it is 13%, then again it came down to 11.3 at 2%. So if you can see the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, you see the jump because the labor went to the rural area. So you can see the COVID area including in here the data. And this data is from the sources of government sources. And Manrega is there, OMM dashboard, you can take it. PMMY, PMMY, and urban and rural both are from their dashboards. So you are asking for the sources. The source is from the dashboard. The calculation will. So this is a 100% data from the government dashboard.
So sample size is 100%. जो गवर्नमेंट ने बोला खर्चा किया वो हमने पूरा लिया.
सर हम जीडीपी की बात नहीं कर रहे क्योंकि आप
मुझे पता ही नहीं क्या होता है.
हम एम्प्लॉयमेंट की भी बात ज़्यादा नहीं कर रहे क्योंकि आपने कुछ लेवल से बंधन बैंक या जो छोटे लोन है उनके लिए आपने किया. लेकिन हम एक बात पूछना चाहते हैं, क्या पॉवर्टी लेवल इस देश का आपके अनुसार कुछ कम हुआ है? क्योंकि 80 करोड़ आदमी तो अभी भी पेंशन या उनको प्राइम मिनिस्टर के यहाँ से वो फंडिंग जाती है, कोई 1500 कोई इस तरीके की योजना है. तो क्या आप बता सकते हैं कि पॉवर्टी लेवल जो है वो 80 करोड़ को जब हम दे रहे हैं और 140 करोड़ हमारी आबादी है तो उसमें आपका कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है? इतना तो आप बता सकते हैं.
नहीं, मेरा कंट्रीब्यूशन पॉवर्टी एरेडिकेशन में तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता. जो 10-15 लोग मेरे साथ काम करते हैं उनकी तनख्वाह में दे देता हूँ. बट पॉवर्टी में जो हमने फील्ड में जाके देखा है, जो इतनी एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट हुई, आप कह रहे हैं छोटे बैंक्स का है, ये छोटे बैंक्स का नहीं है, प्रधानमंत्री मुद्रा योजना का है. इसके अंदर SBI भी है, इसके अंदर पंजाब नेशनल बैंक भी है, इसमें ICICI बैंक भी है, इसमें HDFC बैंक भी है. तो इनके मुंह से बंधन 6 बार ही मिल गया क्योंकि ये बंधन के कस्टमर्स के मिल के आए थे. तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि बंधन की रिपोर्ट है.
4 और बता सकते.
4 और बता देंगे आपको. उड़ीसा का बता देंगे, कहीं का बताएंगे. आप बताओ कि ये ट्राइबल वेलफेयर में क्या हुआ, घर घर पानी कैसे जा रहा है, जो ट्राइबल विद्यालय शुरू किया उन्हें जंगल के बीच में जाके कितनी अच्छी शिक्षा वहाँ पे दी जा रही है, उससे भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएट हो रही है. सो वी कैन गिव यू इन्यूमरेबल नंबर ऑफ एग्जांपल्स एंड द ओनली पर्सन इन द होल कंट्री हु कैन गिव यू दिस केस स्टडीज इज समीर कोचर बिकॉज नो वन हैज बीन कैप्चरिंग इट. मैं रिफॉर्म हिस्टोरियन हूँ, 20 साल से मैं यही काम कर रहा हूँ. पॉवर्टी में बहुत फ़र्क पड़ा है. जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि आप बोल रहे हो फ्री राशन दे रहे हैं, वो उसको आप फ्री राशन बोलते हैं, उसको मैं कैश ट्रांसफ़र इन काइंड बोलता हूँ. सब पॉलिटिकल चाहे वो पार्टीज़ के मैनिफेस्टो में यही है कि हम कैश ट्रांसफ़र देंगे, सबको इतनी इनकम दे देंगे. अब आपने उसको जो है 1000 रुपये महीने नहीं दिया, उसको महीने का राशन दे दिया, तो वो भी तो इनकम है. वो इनकम क्यों नहीं है? क्योंकि उसने नरेगा में काम किया, उसको ऊपर का खर्चा करने के लिए मिल गया, राशन उसको फ्री में मिल गया, स्कूल उसका वैसे ही फ्री है, बच्चा जाता है, हेल्थ उसकी वैसे ही फ्री है, गैस का सिलेंडर उसको सब्सिडाइज मिल रहा है. तो इन सबका इम्पैक्ट तो पॉवर्टी एलिवेशन पे होएगा ही होगा. और ये डाटा हमने यहाँ पे आपको दिया है. क्रेडिट गैप कम होने से, ये तो इकोनॉमिस्ट वाली स्लाइड है, सोशियोलॉजिस्ट वाली नहीं है, इसमें दिया हुआ है कि देयर इज अ पॉजिटिव कोरिलेशन बिटवीन, ये जो क्रेडिट गैप जब कम होता है तो मल्टी डायमेंशनल पॉवर्टी भी कम होती है. स्टेट बाय स्टेट दिया होगा, ये देख लीजिए.
और फ्री बीस का क्या मतलब है सर? उसका भी जैसे बिजली का है और इस तरीके के फ्री बीस बहुत स्टेट्स में है, तमिलनाडु में है, हमारे दिल्ली में है, और भी स्टेटों में होगा. तो ये इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जैसे फ्री कर देते हैं 300, तो उस पर आपका क्या, वो भी एक फाइनेंस?
That is also a conditional money transfer, isn't it? Now, whether it deserves to be a conditional money transfer or not is another story. Why should I get 200 units free? जिसको ज़रूरत है उसको दीजिए. जब गैस सिलेंडर में बोला सब्सिडी छोड़ दो, तो हमने सबसे पहले छोड़ दी थी. अब हम लोगों को अगर सब्सिडी लेनी है तो मतलब इससे बड़ी गद्दारी क्या होगी देश से. हाँ जी.
Report में you have talked about that you are dealing with the Indian reality of fractional employment, right? And there is high degree of informal employment. So how are we counting the employment? Like, is there any parameter that this much duration somebody should have worked, then we are counting it as well, or
We are defining it as a person year, which is 260 days.
I mean, sir, how do you define a person year?
You take the person days created and divide it by 260.
How do you define a person day? Like, for example,
Person day is captured in the scheme. How many dihadis paid?
Yes.
One dihadi is 1 person day.
Okay, one dihadi is 1 person.
Yeah. So all that is accounted for. We're done. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.